founded a movement in China called the New Rural Reconstruction Movement. So these are the two articles I used for my presentation. I used one that was from Oxford University, and it was a guy analyzing, Rowan, analyzing China, this movement, and comparing it to the degrowth movement, which I'll explain later. And then a specific case study in China founded by Xi Yan and a farm that she's helping out. So NNRM, which is the short version of the New Reconstruction Movement, is a grassroots movement which is in China's rural communities and food systems, emphasizing ecological farming, fair distribution, and community and self-governance. And this article that I studied connected it to a degrowth theory, which is an alternate to industrial development models. So why China? It has one of the world's largest rural populations, and due to a lot of history surrounding economic shifts and unequal investment, it's finding itself in a way where it has major social and ecological inequalities between its urban and rural cities, as well as that food safety crises has increased the demand for transparent and local food system by the people. And this movement has now offered this kind of bottom-up response, emphasizing justice and sustainability for these rural people. So the problems that led up to NRM kind of was encapsulated in this book, which is Wang Tijun's 3 rural problems, which was rural poverty, agricultural instability, and weakened village governments, which is where, and the examples that he kind of presented was that industrialization, led to chemical overuse, degraded soils, biodiversity loss, and where large-scale rural-urban migration distributed these community structures, so too many people were leaving the unprofitable rural regions to go work in cities. And the industrial food regime prioritized the growth over the ecological health of rural China. So the basis of NRM was, it kind of started between the 1990s and 2000s in response to this rural decline. It consists of a network of farmers, scholars, and students. Some of the major organizations are these, like the Lin Ximing Center for Rural Reconstruction and Leeds University. And the main goal was to revive this rural culture, rebuild the local economy, and strengthen ecological farming through community-led approaches. Their main motto is distribution, not scarcity, because China definitely produces enough food for its people. Its inequality lies in who controls it and who's able to distribute it. So they want to promote these democratic farmer cooperatives and a community-based support in agriculture, which is known as a CSA, as well as fair pricing, which benefits the producers and consumers. So food is framed as a community right and not a commodity. So the case study is Little Donkey Farm. So this, as I mentioned, was the farm that was helped by Xi Yan. So the basis was that she came in from the University of Minnesota to work. She studied at the University of Minnesota and saw there, she worked in agriculture, the CSA, for 6 months. And there in Minnesota, she saw this direct relationship between farmers and consumers, this shared risk and shared harvest, and realized that these models in the US could apply back to China. So she returned to China with a mission, and that was to build the first large-scale CSA farm in China. So she founded the Little Donkey Farm, which was founded in 2009 at a little village on the outskirts of Beijing. She named the Little Donkey, which I found really funny because it represented, not funny, but interesting, because it represented humility, service, and hard work. Started off as 15 acres of land, began as a partnership between the university and the actual district which the farm relied on. And this is where the farmers and urban families can really work together to create an intentional alternative to industrial farming, especially to chemical-heavy industrial farming. So the core idea was that consumers and farmers jointly support each other, but not through a marketplace, but through an actual relationship. So how the model works is that members buy a yearly subscription to a farm, and in return they receive weekly boxes of seasonal vegetables, invitation to workshops, harvest days, and festivals. This creates a huge amount of transparency between environmental impacts, and the farmers receive a very stable income, reduced risk, and support from their community, while the consumers obviously receive that transparency. And of course, everything on this farm is meant to support organic, low input methods, crop rotation, seed saving, and the little use of chemicals. So this farm obviously follows very closely the NRRM values of local empowerment, ecological stewardship, and this close relation between rural and urban cooperation. So the second article that I looked at was NRM's a degrowth movement. Degrowth is basically instead of this huge going towards building up and up and up, we have to go back down to our roots. And Rowan Alcock, who is at the University of Oxford, looked into this, and this was kind of the first article connecting China's NRM to the degrowth movement. So he looked at how downscaling and consumption and ecological footprints, looked at how community autonomy, over growth-driven development, resistance to industrial agriculture and market dependence, and how in China all of this is related to the critique of global capitalist and food regimes, and how China is that expression of degrowth principles. So degrowth really matters here because it calls for the well-being of the people and the environment without this infinite economic expansion, and NRM demonstrates these ideas through sustainable farming over yield maximization, cooperative ownership over profit-driven agribusiness, and rural revitalization without chasing this GDP growth. It can be people-centered. It shows that in China, it was people-centered instead of outside of Western contexts. Most of the takeaways that I have from NRM was that they were building the food systems back through community government and fair distribution. This was kind of China's pathway towards ecological sustainability and justice, and it really did align with degrowth values, focusing on well-being, and it really provides a model for future food systems